The emergency call came through on a channel we weren't assigned to monitor. It cut straight through the static, loud enough to make me flinch, even though the radio volume was low. "Help, please. I'm at the lower station. Someone's inside." Then it dropped out. No ID, no repeat, just silence. I was sitting in the ranger outpost about 9 miles from the main entrance, finishing a routine log update, and for a second, I thought I'd imagined it. But the recorder was running, and when I rewound it, the voice was still there. Same words, same panic. The thing is, there is no lower station in that sector. Not anymore. There used to be one, years ago, before they shut it down after a landslide took out the access road. It's not on current maps, not part of any patrol route. I hadn't even thought about it in months. I called it into dispatch, gave them the timestamp in the audio clip. They came back after a minute and said no active units had reported anything, and no calls had been routed to official channels. Probably interference, they said. Weather's been messing with signals, but the weather was clear. No storms, no wind, nothing that would explain a clean transmission like that. I checked the frequency again, still on our standard Ranger band. No cross-channel bleed, no overlap. Just that one message. I should have left it there, logged it as an anomaly and moved on. But something about the voice didn't sit right. It wasn't just panic. It sounded controlled, like the person was trying not to panic and failing. That kind of detail sticks with you. I grabbed my field pack, logged my departure time manually. Radio log system had been glitchy all week, and headed out. The old access road to the lower station was technically closed, but you could still reach it by cutting through a service trail that branched off near mile marker 7. It wasn't maintained, but I knew the route. I'd done a survey out there last year. Back then, the station had been empty. Windows boarded up, doors locked, no sign of recent activity. As I hiked, I kept the radio on, scanning for any follow-up transmission. Nothing came through, just the usual static and occasional weather updates from distant stations. Around mile 6, I noticed something odd. A set of tire tracks crossing the trail, fresh. The soil was still loose, edges sharp. They weren't from any official vehicle. Our units used specific tread patterns, and these didn't match. They were wider, deeper, like a heavy truck. The tracks veered off toward the old service road, same direction I was heading. I paused there for a minute, considering. Unauthorized vehicles in restricted areas aren't unheard of, but they're rare this far in. Most people don't even know these roads exist. I marked the location in my notebook and kept moving. By the time I reached the service trail, the light was starting to fade. Not dark yet, but the kind of dim that flattens everything, makes distances harder to judge. The trail itself was overgrown, branches encroaching from both sides, but there were signs it had been used recently. Broken twigs, flattened grass. At one point, I found a piece of blue tape tied around a branch at eye level. Not standard. We don't use tape like that for marking. It was clean, not weathered. Placed recently, I kept seeing them after that. Every couple hundred feet, another strip of blue tape. Always on the right side of the trail, always at the same height. Like someone had marked a path deliberately. About halfway in, the radio crackled again. Same frequency, same distortion. "You're not supposed to be here." The voice was different this time. Lower, flat, no urgency, just a statement. I stopped walking. "This is Ranger Cole," I said into the mic. "Identify yourself." No response, just a burst of static, then silence. I waited a few seconds, then tried again. "If this is a civilian, you need to respond. This area is restricted." Still nothing. I checked the signal strength, full bars. No reason for a drop like that. I made a note of the time and kept going, but slower now, more alert. The trees started to thin as I got closer to the station clearing. I could see the roof through the branches, the old structure silhouetted against the fading sky. It looked the same as I remembered, maybe a little more worn. One of the boards over the front window was missing. The door was closed, no lights, no movement. But as I stepped into the clearing, I noticed the vehicle. Parked off to the side, partially hidden behind a cluster of shrubs. Dark color, no markings. The engine was off, but the hood was still warm when I touched it. Someone had been there recently. I approached the station slowly, keeping one hand near my radio, the other on my flashlight. The front door was unlocked. That alone was wrong. It had been secured last time I checked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The air was stale, heavy with dust and something else I couldn't place. The main room was mostly empty. Old desk, broken chair, filing cabinet with the drawers pulled out. But there were signs of recent activity, footprints in the dust. Multiple sets, some overlapping. And on the desk, a radio unit. Not standard issue, larger, modified. It was on, a low hum coming from the speaker. I stepped closer, listening. At first it was just static. Then faintly, I heard voices. Not one. Several. Layered over each other. Too distorted to make out words. Like multiple transmissions bleeding together. I reached out to adjust the dial, and the voices snapped into clarity for a split second. Inside. Don't open. He's already. Then it cut back to static. I stepped back, unsettled. That's when I heard the noise upstairs. A creak. Slow, deliberate, like someone shifting their weight on old floorboards. I froze, listening. Another creak, closer to the stairs. There shouldn't have been anyone up there. The upper level had been deemed unsafe years ago. I moved toward the base of the stairs, shining my light up into the darkness. "Hello," I called out. "Ranger service. If you're up there, come down." Silence. Then, a soft thud. Not loud, just enough to confirm movement. I took a step up. The wood groaned under my weight. Another step. The beam of my flashlight cut through the dust, catching particles in the air. Halfway up, my radio buzzed. I glanced down at it. The display was flickering, characters scrambling like it couldn't lock onto a signal. Then the same voice from earlier came through. "You're in the log now." I stopped. "What?" I said, instinctively. No response, just that same low static. I reached the top of the stairs and swept the light across the hallway. Doors on either side, all closed. The air felt colder up there, thinner. I moved to the first door on the left and pushed it open. Empty room, broken window, nothing else. The second door was the same. The third door at the end of the hall was slightly ajar. I approached it slowly, listening for any sound inside. Nothing. I nudged it open with the tip of my boot. The room was small. Maybe an office or a storage space. There was a table in the center, and on it, a logbook. Open. Pages filled with handwriting. I stepped closer, shining the light down. The entries were recent, dates from the past few weeks, times, coordinates, descriptions. My stomach tightened as I read. Single hiker, non-compliant, redirected. Vehicle observed, no contact, logged. 2 campers, off trail, monitoring. The handwriting was neat, consistent, like official documentation, but this station wasn't active. No one was assigned here. I flipped to the last page. The most recent entry was from that day. The time matched when I'd heard the emergency call. Under notes, it said, "One ranger, approaching, aware." I felt a chill run through me. That's when the door behind me creaked. I turned around fast, flashlight snapping toward the hallway. The door had closed, not slammed, just eased shut. I moved to open it, but the handle didn't turn. It was locked. I tried again, harder this time. Nothing. The radio buzzed again. "Stay where you are," the voice said. Same flat tone, same lack of emotion. I backed away from the door, heart pounding now. "Who is this?" I demanded. "Identify yourself." No answer, just silence. Then, from somewhere else in the building, I heard footsteps, slow, measured, moving across the floor below. Then another set, and another. Not rushing, not chaotic, just walking, like a routine, like a patrol. I looked back at the logbook on the table. The last entry. One ranger. Approaching. Aware. I flipped back a few pages. More entries, more descriptions. All similar, all detached, like observations, not reports. I noticed something else then. A pattern. Each entry ended with a status. Redirected. Observed. Cleared. Except the last one. Mine didn't have a status. Not yet. The footsteps below stopped, directly beneath the room I was in. The radio crackled one more time. Finalizing entry, the voice said. I didn't wait after that. I stepped back, braced myself, and kicked the door hard near the handle. The wood splintered on the second hit. The lock gave. I pushed through and ran down the hall, not bothering to check the other rooms. The stairs creaked louder this time as I took them two at a time. The main room was empty when I reached it. No one there, no movement, just the hum of the radio on the desk. I didn't stop. I got outside and moved straight for the tree line, not even looking back at the vehicle. I didn't slow down until I hit the main trail. By then, it was fully dark. I called it in as I walked, gave dispatch everything I could. They told me to return to base immediately. No follow-up, no questions, just come back. I did, filed the report, submitted the audio, logged the coordinates. The next day, a team went out to check the station. They reported it as secured. No signs of forced entry, no vehicle, no radio unit, no logbook, just an empty, savage, abandoned structure, exactly as it should have been. They asked if I was sure about what I saw. I told them I was. They didn't argue, but they didn't confirm anything either. A few weeks later, I checked the official logs for that sector, just to see if anything had been added. There was an entry for that day. My patrol, my route, my return time, all standard. But at the bottom, under notes, there was a line I don't remember writing. Unit accounted for. Status, cleared. And the part that still doesn't sit right is the timestamp. It was logged 3 hours before I ever reached the station. The trail marker behind us was facing the wrong direction. I noticed it right away because I'd taken a picture of it earlier. A faded yellow arrow nailed into a pine, pointing east toward the ridge. Now it was turned completely around, facing back the way we'd come, like someone had unscrewed it and flipped it. I stopped walking. Tyler almost bumped into me. "What?" he asked. I pointed at the sign. He squinted at it and shrugged. Maybe we just saw it wrong, but I knew we hadn't. I still had the photo on my phone. Same tree, same chipped paint, just reversed. We were about 6 miles into a trail that wasn't officially maintained anymore, somewhere deep past the marked loops where most people stopped. Tyler had picked it because he said it would be empty, and he was right. We hadn't seen anyone all day. No footprints, no fresh trash, nothing. Just old markers like that one, spaced out and barely visible, like the Park Service had forgotten about them. It was supposed to be a simple overnight, set up camp near the ridge, hike back in the morning. That was the plan. I pulled out my phone and showed Tyler the picture. He leaned in, comparing it to the sign in front of us. "Okay," he said slowly. "That's weird. We didn't pass anyone, right?" I asked. "No. No one could have come behind us and done that." He shook his head. "Not without us hearing them. The woods were dead quiet. No wind, no birds, nothing. Just that heavy stillness you only get in places where sound doesn't carry right." Tyler stepped closer to a tree and touched the sign. It wobbled slightly, like it hadn't been secured properly. "This wasn't like this before," he said. "It was tight." I nodded. "So someone changed it." We stood there for a moment, both of us thinking the same thing but not saying it. If the marker was wrong, then every marker ahead of us could be wrong too. Tyler checked his GPS app. The signal flickered, then stabilized. "We're still on the trail," he said. "At least according to this." I wasn't convinced, but we kept moving. About 10 minutes later, we hit the next marker. This one was nailed into a rock instead of a tree, a metal plate with a directional arrow etched into it. It was also wrong. pointing back. Tyler let out a quiet laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Okay, that's not random," he said. "Someone's messing with the trail." "Why?" I asked. He didn't answer. We kept going, but now we were paying attention to everything. The ground, the trees, the spacing between markers. It all started to feel off. The trail itself looked less defined, like it hadn't been used in a long time. Branches hung lower. The dirt path broke up into patches of grass and exposed roots. At one point, we found a section where the trail split into two narrow paths, both equally worn, both unmarked. Tyler hesitated. "Which one did we take before?" I tried to remember, but nothing stood out. It all looked the same. "Left, I think," I said. He nodded and took the left path. We walked for another 20 minutes before we realized something was wrong. The terrain had changed. The incline was steeper, the trees denser, and there were no markers. None. Tyler stopped and checked his GPS again. This time, it didn't stabilize. The map kept spinning, recalibrating, like it couldn't lock onto our position. "That's not good," he said. "We should have hit the ridge by now." I looked around. The light was starting to fade, even though it was still early evening. The canopy above us had thickened, blocking out most of the sky. "Let's go back," I said. Tyler nodded. We turned around and started retracing our steps, but after a few minutes, we realized the path behind us didn't look the same either. The fork we'd taken was gone. Just a single narrow trail, winding through trees that all looked identical. "No," Tyler said under his breath. "No, no." He pulled out his phone again, trying to mark our location, but the screen froze. Then it went black. "Battery's dead?" I asked. "It was at 60%, he said. We kept moving, faster now. The light kept dropping, the shadows stretching longer between the trees. And then we saw the marker again. The same yellow arrow on the pine tree, facing the wrong direction. We both stopped. "That's not possible," Tyler said. We turned around. "I know, we didn't loop that fast." I walked up to the tree and looked at the sign. It was the same one, same cracks in the wood, same rust around the nail. I pulled up the photo again. It matched. "We're going in circles," I said. "But how?" Tyler didn't answer. He just stared at the sign, like it might change again if he watched it long enough. That's when we heard the whistle. Short, sharp, 2 quick bursts. It came from somewhere ahead of us, deeper into the trees. We both turned toward the sound. "You hear that?" I asked. Tyler nodded slowly. "Yeah, another whistle, same pattern. It sounded like a signal. Not random, not an animal." "Maybe it's a ranger," Tyler said, but his voice didn't sound convinced. "Maybe they're trying to get our attention." I listened carefully. The sound didn't echo the way it should have. It felt close, too close. "Or someone else," I said. The whistle came again, slightly to the left this time, like it had moved. Tyler hesitated, then started walking toward it. "We should check it out," he said. "They might know the way out." I followed, even though something about it felt wrong. The path narrowed as we moved deeper, branches brushing against our arms, the ground uneven and soft. The whistle kept coming, always just ahead, always just out of sight. After a while, I noticed something else. The trees around us had markings, not natural ones, cuts, thin lines carved into the bark, about eye level, running horizontally around the trunks. "Do you see that?" I asked. Tyler glanced at one as we passed. "Yeah," he said. "Trail markers?" "No," I said. "They're too low. And they're all the same height." We stopped at one of the trees. The cut was fresh, the wood inside still pale, not yet darkened by exposure. Someone had made it recently. "Why mark trees like this?" Tyler asked. I didn't have an answer. The whistle sounded again, louder now, closer. Tyler looked up, scanning the trees. "Hello," he called out. "We're on the trail. We need help." The whistle stopped. Silence dropped in immediately after, heavy and sudden. We waited. Nothing. No response. No movement. Just that same unnatural quiet. "Maybe they didn't hear us," Tyler said. Then, from behind us, the whistle came again. Same pattern. We both turned around. It was closer now, much closer. "They're behind us," I said. Tyler shook his head. "No, that's not—" The whistle cut him off, louder this time, almost right on top of us. He spun around, scanning the trees, but there was nothing there. No movement, no figure, just shadows. "Okay," he said, his voice tight. "Okay, that's not a ranger." We started moving again, faster now, not toward the whistle, just away from it. But it followed, always just out of sight, always shifting position, like whoever was making it knew exactly where we were going. The cuts on the trees became more frequent, closer together, forming a kind of pattern, though I couldn't tell what it meant. At one point we found a tree with multiple cuts, layered over each other, like someone had stood there for a long time, marking it again and again. Tyler stopped. "This is messed up," he said. "This is really messed up." I nodded. "We need to get out of here." We pushed forward, ignoring the whistle, ignoring the markers, just trying to move in a straight line. But the terrain kept shifting, the path bending in ways that didn't make sense. And then we saw the tent. It was ours. Same color, same setup, sitting in a small clearing ahead of us. I felt my stomach drop. "No," I said. "That's not." Tyler ran ahead, stopping just short of the clearing. "That's our camp," he said. "We haven't even set it up yet." He was right. Our gear was still in our packs. We hadn't reached the ridge. We hadn't stopped. And yet there it was. The tent flap was open. Inside, I could see our sleeping bags, laid out exactly how we would have arranged them. My backpack sat in the corner, unzipped. Tyler stepped closer, slowly, like approaching something dangerous. "Did we black out or something?" he said. "Did we come here earlier and just forget?" "No," I said. "That's not possible." The whistle came again, right behind us. We both turned. For a split second, I thought I saw something between the cracked tent.
"Now, this is the year of your own path." We both turned for a split second again. Trees, a shape, too tall, too still.
Then it was gone. Tyler grabbed my arm. "We're not staying here," he said. "We're not touching that tent." I nodded. We backed away from the clearing, keeping our eyes on it until the trees blocked it from view. The whistle stopped after that, completely. We kept walking until it was fully dark, using our headlamps to follow whatever path we could find. Eventually, we hit a gravel road, out of nowhere. No markers, no signs, just a road. We followed it until we found a ranger station about a mile down. The ranger on duty listened to our story, his expression unreadable. When we mentioned the foot markers, the whistles, the second campsite, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "You're not the first to report something like that," he said. "Trail manipulation happens more often than people think out here." Tyler asked if anyone had been caught doing it. The ranger shook his head. "No. Whoever's doing it knows the terrain too well." I asked about the whistles. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "There are no authorized personnel using whistle signals in that area." We stayed at the station that night, didn't go back out. The next morning, we checked our gear. Everything was accounted for. Nothing missing, nothing added. But when I opened my phone to delete some photos, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There was a picture in my gallery that I didn't take. It was of our tent, in that clearing, taken from a distance through the trees. The timestamp was from the night before, right around the time we first heard the whistle. And in the corner of the image, barely visible in the shadows, there was a trail marker on a tree behind the tent, facing the right direction. The zipper moved before any of us touched it. I remember that clearly because we were all sitting still, listening, and the fabric on the tent door twitched, like someone testing it from outside. It was just past midnight, and the wind had completely died about 20 minutes earlier, so there wasn't anything to explain it away. I whispered to Mark, asking if he saw it too, and he didn't answer right away. Then he said, very quietly, "Yeah. Don't move." The three of us had hiked out to that spot earlier that afternoon, about 4 miles past the last marked trailhead, following an unofficial route that Mark had found on an old forestry map. He liked those kinds of places, the ones not listed online, the ones people didn't usually camp in. Said it felt more real. At the time, it just felt quiet. Too quiet maybe, but nothing that set off alarms. We pitched the tent near a dry creek bed, about 30 yards from a line of twisted juniper trees, and I remember noticing an old fire ring nearby, half buried under dirt and leaves, like someone had tried to hide it. That stuck with me even before things got weird. Around 10 p.m. we heard the first noise. It wasn't loud, just a crunch like a footstep on gravel, somewhere past the trees. Mark assumed it was a deer. Jason thought maybe another camper, even though we hadn't seen anyone all day. I didn't say anything, I just listened. The sound came again, but this time it stopped halfway through, like whoever made it had suddenly realized we were awake. We shut off the lantern after that. The darkness got heavy fast. You don't realize how much light you rely on until it's gone completely. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the trees blocked what little ambient light there was. It felt like we were sealed inside something. Then came the radio. Mark always carried a handheld radio scanner, the kind that could pick up park ranger frequencies and weather alerts. It had been silent all evening, but around 11:30, it crackled to life. At first it was just static, broken up by short bursts of something that sounded like speech, but too distorted to understand. Then it cleared for a second. A voice came through, flat and quick. "Unit 12, confirm position." Then silence again. Mark frowned and checked the dial, like maybe he bumped it. He hadn't. We were still tuned to the local ranger band. Jason asked if we should respond, joking, but no one laughed. The voice came back about a minute later, clearer this time. "Unit 12, you're not cleared for that sector." Mark turned the radio off after that, said it was probably picking up signals from miles away, bouncing off the terrain. It didn't sit right though. Not with the way it sounded so close, like it was meant for someone nearby. That's when the footsteps started circling. Slow at first, then more deliberate, not random, not wandering. They followed a pattern, like someone walking the perimeter of our tent, keeping a consistent distance. We could hear gravel shifting, twigs snapping, the faint rustle of brush. Every time it passed behind us, the sound got slightly muffled, like the person was moving through thicker cover. Mark grabbed his headlamp, but didn't turn it on. He just held it, waiting. Jason leaned toward the tent door, trying to see through the mesh, but it was useless, too dark. That's when the zipper moved. Just a slight tug at first, barely noticeable. Then another, more deliberate pull, enough to make the metal teeth click softly. I felt my stomach drop. Mark whispered, "Don't say anything." The movement stopped. For maybe 10 seconds, there was nothing. Then a hand pressed against the fabric. You could see the outline from inside, faint but unmistakable. Fingers spread wide, pushing just enough to stretch the material. It stayed there, unmoving, like whoever it belonged to was feeling for something, or just letting us know they were there. Jason sucked in a breath, too loud. The hand cooled away instantly. Then the footsteps retreated, fast this time, crunching through the gravel and disappearing into the trees. We didn't move for a while after that, just sat there, listening. Mark eventually turned the radio back on, but it was dead silent. No static, no voices. Around 1 a.m. we heard something else, a vehicle, distant at first but getting closer. That didn't make sense. There were no roads out there, not for miles. The sound grew louder, engine revving low, tires crunching over uneven ground. Then headlights cut through the trees, sweeping across the campsite in quick, jerky motions. We all froze. The light passed over the tent once, Then again, slower this time, like whoever was driving was trying to get a better look. The engine idled, somewhere just beyond the creek bed. A door opened, then closed. Footsteps again, heavier now, boots on gravel. A voice called out, calm and authoritative. "Ranger service. Anyone out here?" Mark looked at me, then at Jason. He mouthed, "Don't answer." The voice came closer. "This area is closed for overnight camping. You need to pack up and move." It sounded official, but something was off. The tone was too flat, too rehearsed, like someone reading from memory. Mark finally spoke, keeping his voice steady. "We didn't see any signs. We'll head out in the morning." There was a pause. Then the voice responded, slightly sharper. "No, you need to leave now." The footsteps moved closer to the tent. I could see the shadow of the person through the fabric, distorted by the headlight beam behind them. Something about the shape didn't look right. The proportions felt off, like the shoulders were too narrow, or the head sat too low. It's hard to explain, but it didn't match the voice. Mark stood up slowly, grabbed his flashlight, and said, "I'm going to check." Jason grabbed his arm, tried to stop him, but Mark shook him off. He unzipped the tent in one quick motion and stepped outside, snapping the light on at the same time. The beam cut through the darkness, landing on the edge of the trees. There was no one there. The headlights were gone. The engine noise was gone. It was just quiet again. Too quiet. Mark turned in a slow circle, scanning the area. "Hello?" he called out. No response. He walked a few steps toward the creek bed, then stopped. "Guys," he said, his voice tight. "There's tracks." We crawled out after him, staying close. The ground was soft enough to hold impressions, and there were footprints leading up to the tent. But they didn't come from the direction of any road. They started about 10 feet away, like whoever made them had just appeared there. And they only led in one direction, toward us. There were no tracks leading away. Jason pointed that out immediately. "Where did they go?" Mark didn't answer. He just kept scanning the ground, the trees, the sky, like he was trying to find something that made sense. That's when the radio crackled again. Still inside the tent, still turned on. We all turned toward it. The voice came through, clearer than before. "Unit 12, you've been reported missing." None of us moved. The voice continued, slower this time. "Last noon. Location: unauthorized campsite, near Dry Creek bed." It listed coordinates next. Exact coordinates. Mark rushed back into the tent and grabbed the radio, staring at it like it might explain itself. "We're not broadcasting," he said. "This thing doesn't transmit." Jason asked if maybe someone else was out there, another group. But Mark shook his head. "Then how do they know where we are?" No one had an answer. We packed up after that, fast. No one said it out loud, but we all wanted to leave. The problem was, the trail we came in on wasn't marked, and in the dark, it was easy to lose. Mark tried to use his GPS, but it kept glitching, jumping between course. We saw that months and months. Once we had a chance to put it on purpose, sometimes showing us miles away from where we actually were. We decided to follow the creek bed instead of workers. As we moved, I kept looking back. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Not followed exactly, just observed. Like something out there was tracking us without needing to move. About half a mile in, we found the vehicle. Parked crooked between two trees, engine cold, headlights off. It wasn't a Ranger truck. No markings, no plates. The driver's door was open. Inside, the radio was on, emitting a low, steady static. Mark approached it cautiously, shining his light inside. The seat was empty. The keys were still in the ignition. On the passenger seat, there was one clipboard with a single sheet of paper clipped to it. Mark picked it up. His hands were shaking slightly. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he turned the paper toward us. It was a log sheet. Official looking, formatted like something a ranger might use, At the top it said, Unit 12, Activity Log. Below that were entries, handwritten, dates, times, locations. The last entry was from that night. The time matched when we first heard the footsteps. The location matched our campsite. And under notes, it said, 3 occupants, non-compliant, monitoring. Jason swore under his breath. I felt a cold wave run through me. This isn't funny, he said. This is not funny. Mark flipped the page over. On the back, there was a rough sketch. A map, maybe. It showed the creek bed, the trees, the tent, and 3 small circles drawn where we had been sitting. There was a 4th circle just outside the tent. We left the paper there. It kept moving. No one wanted to touch anything else. The rest of the hike was quiet. No more voices, no more footsteps. Just the sound of our own movement and the occasional crack of branches underfoot. We reached the main trail just before dawn. There was a ranger station about a mile from there, and we went straight to it. The ranger on duty listened to our story without interrupting, his expression neutral the whole time. When we mentioned the radio, the Marcus Pat pushed past the fire. Vehicle, the log sheet. He frowned slightly. We don't have a Unit 12 assigned to this area, he said, and that sector is enclosed. Mark asked if anyone else had reported something similar. The ranger hesitated for a second, then said, We get unusual reports sometimes, mostly from people camping off trail. He didn't elaborate. We showed him the coordinates from the radio, the ones Mark had written down. He checked them against his map, then looked up at us. That's not a recognized campsite, he said. There shouldn't be any activity logged there. We left after that, drove back in silence. None of us really knew what to say. A few days later, Mark tried to go back, just to see if anything was still there. He couldn't find the spot. The trail looked different. The creek bed split in a way it hadn't before. He said it felt like the whole area had shifted. We haven't gone back since, but sometimes, late at night, I still think about that log sheet, the way it listed us like we were part of a routine. And what bothers me most isn't the voice or the footsteps, it's that last note. Monitoring. Because whatever was out there didn't try to scare us off. It didn't rush us or threaten us. It just watched. And if that log was real, if it was being updated in real time, then someone, somewhere, was still keeping track.